I'm Batman.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I'm a doctor. But probably not the one you expect.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Welcome everyone to this special Geek This Week presentation, and this is the Caroline Munro Panel from Pensacon 2024 at the Wesley Abby Theater, attached to the First Baptist Church, Downtown Pensacola, Florida. Caroline Munro, known throughout the sci-fi world, started with making movies with Hammer, first starting with the On Bus series, On the Buses, and then following up with Mutiny on the Buses. Also co-starred with Vincent Price in the abominable Dr. Phibes and the sequel, Dr. Phibes Rises Again. Made her Hammer horror debut in Dracula AD 1972. Also followed up that with Captain Kronos, the Vampire Hunter. Also starred in The Golden Voyages of Sinbad, At the Earth's Core with Peter Cushing, Star Crash, The Adventures of Stella Star, alongside Christopher Plummer and David Hasselhoff. But what she's most famous for is playing the henchwoman Naomi in the James Bond film The Spy Who Loves Me. So sit back and enjoy this panel as she talks about her career filming Dracula AD 1972, talking about The Spy Who Loves Me, and much, much more. And also check out all the other great content on the Geek This Week YouTube channel, panels from previous Pensacons, and much, much more. So hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you guys for your support.
Well, I don't know that we need the mics, but we're going to use them anyway. All are you ready to close out the convention? This is it. We saved the absolute best for last, ladies and gentlemen, is Caroline Munro.
Actually, I'd quite like to do it. How do you pop it out? Use it.
I'll be a manly man, do manly things.
I'd like to help you. It's very manly. I'm very impressed. I tell you what, thank you for coming first of all. It's so lovely to see you. And first of all, I've had the best time being here with you all. You've made me feel so welcome. Me and my daughter, who's sitting over there nattering away. Tammy, there she is. Couldn't do it without her. But also for being invited here in the first place. I've never been to Pensacola, and I'm fallen a little in love with it. It's a beautiful place. And you, hello. Oh good, we have more people. This is wonderful. We might be small in number, but we're mighty in heart, I feel. I have a feeling we are. No, it's so lovely to see you. Thank you for coming along. Yes, I am the last, I believe. Well, there's quite a lot. There's two chaps in the next church over there, and you've got quite a big crowd. But thank you very much for coming along to see me. It's lovely. I really appreciate it. I have now what they call show throat, meaning I've been talking, as my daughter says, far too much, but so my voice has gone a little foggy. I'm not poorly, I'm not ill, it's just slightly husky, let's say.
The husky voice.
The husky voice, yeah. Oh.
Well, and I've been taking advantage because I was telling Ms. Monroe that my wife and I are taking our first trip to London this year, so we've been getting travel tips.
We have, yes, we've been trying to think of all the places to go. I mean, and London, has anybody been to London? One, yeah, two? It's a big city, isn't it? And there's so much to see. I mean, we have a lot of history. We go back a long, long way. So there's a lot to see there. Beautiful parks, wonderful churches, interesting people. You get a lot of characters. You know, you do, and different areas. I'm sure it's like any big city, but you get different areas and different architecture. And I kind of think with London, I like the way, because we have a lot of very old buildings, very historic buildings, but what they've done, which is very clever, the architects have blended a lot of the old, a lot of the new with the old, and I think it works extremely well. They live side by side. And I find that very impressive. But it is a beautiful city. How did you find the people? Did you find them kind of okay? Were they friendly-ish? Well, most of them were nice. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, I mean, they generally, they have a funny way sometimes. Could you understand them? Did they have funny voices? Not really. So you could understand them. How was the food? Did you like fish and chips? It's rather good. Did you have the mushy peas? Oh, the mushy peas. That's I tell you what, we went to where did we go, Tom? Flounders last night. Now that was good. That was terrific. I asked for a starter, or what you call appetizer. And when the starter, I thought, oh, that's good. I'm not too hungry, so I'll just have a little lovely fish. And it arrived. And it was the size of a whale. It was huge. And I also ordered chips or French fries. French fries that came with it. And I managed most of it. I must say it was delicious. Plus the tomato ketchup, of course. Yes. So maybe what do we talk about? Anything we want, actually.
Absolutely.
And anybody can ask me anything, and I really don't mind whenever the time comes.
There are a few things that the old Hammer horror
I
films.
just want to see everybody. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm a bit nosy. That's better. I like to see everybody's whites of the eyes. Go on.
Those old Hammer films.
Yes.
How much blood did they use?
Oh, loads of blood. I mean, absolutely loads. And I'm sure a lot of you experts who know Hammer films know what it's called. Do they or not? Anybody put their hands up who knows what it's called? Yes, Kensington Gore. And Kensington Gore, I don't know if they still use it because I haven't been, I haven't had a lot of blood over my
I thought that was one of the starters at Flounders, a little Kensington
Gore. Yeah, with the tomato ketchup. Yeah, that's what everybody used to say. Don't they use tomato ketchup? No, they don't. Kensington Gore has absolutely, supposedly, the right consistency for the blood. And I had plenty of blood in Dracula AD 72. I was in fact covered with it. I was so covered with it that I was going home after we finished shooting, and I'll come back to Christopher later, but after we finished shooting, I had to rush back and cook dinner. I think it was for you, Tammy, you and Chip, and I had to rush back after shooting. So I jumped in the little Mini, I had a little Mini car, and I tried to shower it off. I tried to shower this stuff off, but it's so sticky, it had the consistency. So I had a lot of it down my throat and chest. I changed from the shroud into something, but it was still quite visible. So I jumped in the Mini, and I thought, right, I've got to get home quickly because they'll be waiting to be fed. So jumped in the car, sped off down the road rather fast, because my Mini was a Mini 1000, so it was very speedy. Jumped in the car and sped off down the road from Pinewood, which is quite a long drive, it's about an hour's drive. And then I was going along, actually it was in a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think I was doing about 70, which was a bit naughty, but anyway, whizzing along, getting home, thinking, what am I going to cook? Am I going to do mashed potatoes, chips? What am I going to do? Roast potatoes? Not sure. Maybe beans on toast. That'll be fine. So got ready, and suddenly I heard this noise behind me. And I thought, what is that? And I don't know how your police sirens go, but I suddenly looked behind me and I could see the lights flashing. I thought, what is this? What's going on? And I thought, well, something's obviously happened up ahead. And it was me. They were flashing me, so I obviously had to pull over onto the hard shoulder. And they pulled up beside me. There was two of them. This policeman. I thought, what have I done? You know, I think I have been going a little bit fast, obviously, but I need to get home to cook the dinner. They got out, one got out, and I rolled down the window, and he said, he looked at me, he said, what are you doing? He said, you were going very fast, too fast, do you realise? I said, I'm so sorry, officer. I was trying to rush home to cook my children some supper. So there's no excuse. And then he looked at me, put the light on me. He looked at me. I was kind of covered in this stuff, little black eyes because of crying or whatever. He said, are you all right? I said, yes, I'm fine. He said, you're covered in blood. I said, oh no, I've just been bitten by Dracula. I'm on my way home. So he looked at me, he thought, naughty woman. naughty woman. Anyway, he said, okay. He said, as long as you're all right. I said, I'm fine. He said, don't. Slow down. He let me go. So yes, Kensington Gore is the answer. Well done. I'm sure they use much more sophisticated stuff now, but it was good. Tricky to get off. And in the hair too, yuck.
And right now you have CGI and all these huge special effects. Not so much then, did they?
CGI definitely has its place, and it's wonderful and clever and technical and fabulous. Back in the day, everything was done before your eyes. So when I say I had the blood pumping through if anybody's seen Dracula AD, I'm lying on the altar, and Christopher Neame is, it sounds horrible, but he had to slit his wrist, and the blood from the thing dropped in the cup I was holding, and then the blood started to flow. How the blood started to flow was because I was wearing the shroud, the long black shroud, and they had sounds rather strange, but they had a pipe. There was a chap lying down on the floor by the altar, which they'd made at Pinewood Studios. It was an extraordinary set, huge, it was a replica of a beautiful church. It was huge with stained glass windows and wonderful. And this chap was lying down on the floor, and he said, right, Gov, when am I going to pump the blood up? And I thought, what is going on here? And basically what they'd done, the very sweet wardrobe lady had come, she said, Caroline said, we've got to put a pipe up your shroud so it comes out of the top. I said, okay, all right. She said, do you want to go in the corner? I said, yes, I think I do. So I went in the corner, she stuck the pipe up the shroud, it sort of came to chest height, and then she said, right, I think we're ready to go. So very cleverly, when Alan Gibson, the fabulous director, said action, they started to pump this stuff. So I couldn't see it because I was obviously lying flat on my back. So I couldn't see what was going on, but suddenly this stuff started pouring out. But pouring, if anybody's seen the scene, then they'll realise what was happening. And he said, really, we're going to try and do it in one take. Because obviously it was going to take hours for me to get this stuff off. So we did it in one take. So that was interesting. And then from then on, I was left covered in the blood, and then the scene continues. And then I'd spoken to Christopher quite a bit before the scene. We'd had a chat, and I was sitting there doing my knitting. I used to knit squares, patchwork squares in between the shoot, in between the takes. So I'd sit there, do my knitting, and we'd chat away, and he talked about Transylvania, as you do. He'd been there, and he'd gone to the Impaler's Castle, as you do, and I was he was lovely, he was charming and wonderful. And then I said to Alan, so then he went away to get ready. I said to Alan Gibson, the director, I said, can I just ask you something, Alan, please? I said, is it possible I actually don't want to see him before he comes through the curtain, because I knew he was going to appear through the curtain. He said, are you sure? I said, I'd rather not rehearse that. I'd like to just see what happens. So he said, well, I'll ask Christopher. So he went and he asked Christopher. Christopher agreed. So Christopher got ready, eyes, everything, cape, face, bangs. So anyway, so we did a couple of takes. We did one take with him walking through. And when this man, who was 6'4" plus, walked through the curtain, and I think I was kneeling on the floor at that point, quite hysterical, I might add, because I was covered in this stuff. And then suddenly he appeared, and I remember, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm actually terrified of this apparition that's walking towards me. And I remember I was barefooted and I was cold and shivering, and then I stood up and he was there right in front of me. I remember looking up at him and he was looking down at me with his eyes, saying nothing, and then his mouth started to open. And I just remember it was the most extraordinary moment that I was Laura Bellows. I became that rather hedonistic, silly little girl. And then, and then he decided to bite my neck, and then, it was very...
As you do.
As you do. It was a turning point for me as an actress. It was very helpful for me. I thought, okay, if I can try and replicate the way I felt at that particular moment in other films, if I'm going to do any other films, then I'd be quite a happy girl, because I had no formal training, so I had to depend on my instinct, I think.
And not rehearsing. That must have been a really organic reaction.
I mean, I knew I had a spot to walk to, you had your marks to walk to. Obviously he had his mark, so he knew where to walk to. You could see his mark, I could see my mark. You could kind of glance down a bit, cheat a bit, so you had your mark. Because obviously the camera had to, but no, we did it. And it felt real, as real as you could. And he didn't bite me, no. But he was very sweet after. He said, Caroline. I said, yes. He said, thank you very much. He said, yours is one of the nicest necks I've ever had to bite. And he really did say that. I said, oh, thanks, Christopher. That really means a lot to me. I mean, what a stupid answer. He really did say that's true.
I just heard him say that in his voice right there. And you worked with Christopher, you worked with Peter Cushing.
I did. Chalk and cheese, the two of them, but both delightful, and they loved each other. They loved and respected each other so much. They were brilliant together. As actors, as I say, totally different men, totally different ways of acting too. Interesting to watch the two of them work together. And yes, I didn't have any scenes with Peter in Dracula AD, no scenes at all, but I got the great delight in working with him for 6 weeks at the Earth's core, and I really got to know the man and to adore the man, because he was so sweet, so gentle, so funny, and quick, quick wit, and he'd bring his own props to the stage, to the show and everything. It was amazing.
And later on, he went on to blow up the planet Alderaan in Star Wars.
He did, didn't he? I mean, yes, imagine that. Yes.
And around that very same time, you were piloting a helicopter.
I was.
Naughty girl.
I was a very naughty girl.
So how much time did you actually spend in a real helicopter?
Quite a lot of time. Yes, no, quite a lot of time. Not with that particular scene, when we had to do the close-ups, because they suddenly realised, I think Lewis Gilbert, the director, wonderful director in Spy, and Cubby, wonderful producer.
And don't get, we're talking about The Spy Who Loved Me, the James Bond movie.
We've jumped to 76. Actually, 76 we shot it. It didn't come out till 7/7/77. I remember the date. So yes, I did spend time in the helicopter, and they realised that they hadn't got any close-up shots of me. So Lewis had directed the scene. I mean, I was in the helicopter, wasn't I? You know that, don't you?
You were piloting too, right?
I was piloting. I was pretty good, I must say. I thought I was quite impressed by me. That was quite good, especially the bits up. So they realised they hadn't done any close-ups, and they were busy. Lewis was busy shooting with Roger and Barbara somewhere else, and he said to his assistant director, Ernest Day, he said, we need to get some close-ups. So the close-ups actually were done in Pinewood Studio, those particular close-ups, because they realised they hadn't got them. So we did it, and so second assistant, Ernest Day, he said, well, we've just got to shoot you looking around, or he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't really know. You know, what did Cubby want me to do, or Lewis? He said, well, really, how you feel, you know, do what you think. So we went through a few things, and the few things, I suppose, was a kiss, and a wave, and a wink. So they kept a couple of them. So that's kind of how we did that.
A little mischievous.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully. I think she was slightly bonkers, really. I kind of played her, I'm hoping. You know, she was a bit nutty. She didn't want to sleep with James Bond. She just wanted to kill him. You know, and I thought, well, that was her aim. You know, she was Kurt Jürgens' hench person, along with Richard, beautiful Richard Keel. And I think that was just her mission. Right, I'm going to get him. You know.
You struck up a friendship with Richard, didn't you?
Very much, we did, Tammy. Yeah, we so did. He was just a beautiful human being. Did anybody ever get a chance to meet him? Yeah? You wish?
Yeah.
Yes, he was just so special. He was so clever. He was brilliant mind. Incredibly tall, 7'2.5". Huge feet, size 17, I believe, so he said, and massive hands, but with the biggest heart you've ever. He was kind. He was so kind, and again very generous. And it was lovely because Richard and I got to do the European tour for The Spy. Cubby asked us, and we got to go to all the European cities, which was very, very special. There was Richard and Diane and myself, and I think my husband was there at the time. You know, I think we all went on the European tour. We had to turn up, go to the theatre. We didn't have to watch the film again, and you know, just be there for publicity. And we had the best tour together, and I got to know him really well. Very special, amazing man, and such a good actor. Because if you think about it, he had no dialogue in that film, but it really, you know, he got his character, didn't he? He got the walk, he got everything about that character. In fact, people loved it so much, and Roger loved him, that they brought him back for Moonraker. He was just an amazing man.
They finally gave him a line in Moonraker, at least one.
Who knows the line? Actually, I don't, so sorry.
He said it to that little short girl that he ended up.
Did he say, I love you?
Something like that.
He must have said, I love you, don't you? Maybe she said, I love you too. That's what I like to think.
As they were being blown into space.
Yes.
Well, you got blown up too, so.
Yeah, I did. Yes, yes, I did. Or the helicopter got blown up, but I still believe that she was canny enough to have the parachute in the back. I believe she escaped. And she didn't live to see another day, did she? Sadly.
You talked about, you mentioned Cubby, recall. How involved was he in the making of the movie?
Cubby was so involved. He was there every day on the set. And for my scenes, I was flown to Sardinia, which is an island off Italy. It's so beautiful, very beautiful island. And we were shooting in a hotel owned by the Aga Khan, and it was called Cala di Volpe. Bay of the Wolf, it meant Cala di Volpe, and that's where we were shooting. And it was on the Costa Esmeralda. Lovely, isn't it? Quite a romantic name, and the sea was so beautiful, beautiful colour sea. But I also remember that we had 5 terrible days of weather. So they were preparing to shoot our particular scenes with that, not the helicopter, we've done that, but the boat scenes where I kind of meet him. And the weather was so bad that Cubby was sitting around with Cubby, and they were playing backgammon, which they used to like to do. So they sat there playing backgammon. So they were sitting there, and we were trying to think of stuff to do. You couldn't really go out, you couldn't go swimming because the weather was too bad, the sea was rough. And on the 6th day, we had the most amazing cinematographer called Claude Renoir, who I believe, I think I'm right, was either, he wasn't the son, but he was of the actual of the artist, so that was incredible. So he was there too. He said on the 6th day he came and he said, right, everybody, we're ready to shoot. The sun is coming, it's gentle, but it's coming. I think the time is right, we can shoot. So we were all prepared. You know, we had the dialogue, we knew pretty much we had to plot it out. Lewis had to figure it all out, but we were ready to go.
It had to be, the boss was on the set.
Yes, Cubby. Oh no, he was so on the set. He was on the set, and he was again so charming. He made sure the crew were all right. You know, right down to the boy that makes the coffee. Every member, every person in a Bond film, the crew was so important to him, because without the crew being on your side, then it's going to be tough. Same applied to a Hammer film. You have the crew on your side and you really look after your crew, then, you know, it works like clockwork. Same as this show. Actually, if you think about it, Pensacon, without a fantastic team, which you have an amazing team, all the ladies and gentlemen wearing pink. So I see one lady at the back wearing pink. You know, without that wonderful team, it's going to fall apart. So, yeah. Yes, and of course you're wearing pink.
Yeah.
And everybody says men shouldn't wear pink. I think they're wonderful in pink, personally.
I'm feeling in the pink.
You're feeling in the pink.
Ray Harryhausen.
Yes.
You worked with an amazing special effects genius. And what was the movie you worked with him?
It was called The Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it was so. I think it was Ted Moore who did the cinematography on that. I think it's one of the most beautifully shot films. It's so pretty to look at. And it's just like a wonderful, he wanted his films. I remember him saying, in fact, he wanted to do a book of his fairy tales and his creatures, but he always wanted his book to be like a fairy tale, his films to be like a fairy tale and lit so beautifully. And wonderful dialogue. Actually, it was Brian Clements who wrote the screenplay for Sinbad, our Sinbad, who I'd worked with just not long, but actually a year before. I just worked with Brian Clements on Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, which was really, I enjoyed that. Oh, thank you.
We have some fans.
It's actually, I think, possibly my favourite film, my favourite character, because I didn't really have to do that much in it. You know, it was very naturalistically shot, and again, interesting little dialogue. It was, I believe it was really ahead of its time. I think so, because when it came out 2 years later, because Hammer didn't feel it was right for Hammer. It didn't have the blood effects that a lot of the Hammer films had. It didn't have a lot of heaving bosoms, you know what I mean? It didn't have all the things that made a Hammer film, but it did have it was very an esoteric film, And I think that was very much ahead of its time. In fact, I think it's a precursor to a lot of the ones, say like the Buffy films, you know, the Buffy and the Twilight. I think Brian had come up with something really good, but ahead of its time, so people didn't get it. But when it came out later in '74, I think an audience saw it, and if they got the kind of gist of it, you know, the idea of it, then people started to fall in love with it. I think he did such a good job on that. But I've kind of digressed, haven't I? I've jumped from Sinbad, from Sinbad to Cronus, but
You can jump wherever you want. This is your show.
it's our show.
I was going to say,
It's our show.
I will talk to Caroline the entire time, but if you have some
Yeah,
questions,
please,
let us
if you have
know.
anything you want to ask, please do. And, you know, no holds barred, unless you're being very cheeky. Yeah.
Since you were talking about the Golden Voyage of Sinbad,
Yeah.
what was it like working with Tom Baker?
Oh, Tom Baker. Was he your favorite doctor? Because he was...
Well, in the States, when they aired Dr. Who on PBS, it started with him. So
Oh,
for a kid in the
really?
late 70s, early 80s here in the U.S., he
So
was our doctor.
he was your first doctor.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
how lovely. I go back 100 years, but mine was William Hartnell and Pat Troughton. But Tom Baker, is that me making funny noises? I think it is. He was wonderful. He was not only a superb actor, I think he played Kura with such a plum, and he really devoured that character. He was that character, and he has that magnificent voice. He had such a beautiful speaking voice, and we had a dialectician on that film who was trying to, I struggled. I think myself and John Phillips struggled with trying to get the right accent, because Ray and Charles Schneer, the producer, wanted as close as they could to how they imagined that we would speak. But Tom got it absolutely. No, lovely man, superb actor. And I believe, again, I think this is true, I think after he'd done Sinbad, he didn't work for a little while, and then the producers of the Doctor Who, they found him, and they'd seen Sinbad, and they thought, wow, he's perfect. And they thought he's perfect for Sinbad, so for the Doctor. So that's how he got the Doctor, and he was superb. He's the nicest man, and he used to call me Kid. In fact, I saw him, actually must be maybe about 8 years ago. We were in EMI, records shop in London, Oxford Street, and I suddenly heard this booming voice say, "Kid!" And I thought, what is that? I looked round, he was there. He said, "Hello, Kid." I said, "Hello, Tom." And we just had a little chat, and he looked so well. He was just lovely. Lovely man. He used to come over here, I believe. Did anybody meet him? No?
Never came to Pensacon.
He hasn't come here.
No,
to this one.
not to this one, but I believe he used to travel in the 80s, I think, over here and do some shows. He doesn't do that now. No, not at all. Still does his voiceovers though. And what's the one he did? What's the funny one he did? Little Britain, yes, thank you, Little Britain. How was it straight? Did you have Little Britain over here? Now that was a cheeky show, wasn't it? Did you all see it? Whoa, that was quite out there, wasn't it? Yeah. No, he did of course he did the voice. Yeah.
You talked about records. I'm going to talk about tar and cement.
Oh my goodness.
Who were the background musicians in that record?
But yes, they were quite well known actually at the time. And I was a kid when I did that. I was 16. Yes, the musicians on that were session musicians at the time, who later became Cream. So it was Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, and Steve Howard. Yes. So there I was, little me, having sung in the church choir in my, down in a tiny village called Rottingdean by the seaside, and my father used to travel up and down every day on the train from Rottingdean to London because he worked in the city. He was a lawyer, solicitor, and he met a man on the train. He was called Steve Beecher Stevens, who was head of Decca Records. And they got to know each other really, really well. And I met Steve Beecher Stevens, Dad's friend, and then he and Dad were chatting, and Steve said, does your daughter sing? He said, well, she only sort of sings in the church choir. He said, would she be interested in doing a little record with us? He said, oh, I don't know, I'll ask her. In fact, in the church choir, I was in the church choir, but I didn't sing, but I was good at miming. Because my lovely friend, Tammy, Sue Evans, who's sadly no longer with us, she had the loudest, and it was a really good voice, she had the loudest voice in the world, and we had a very strict choir mistress called Mrs. Keogh. I was terrified of her. So I used to stand up at the top of the church with Sue, who had the loudest voice in the world, and Mrs. Keogh used to play the organ, and Sue used to belt this out, and I was watching her. I thought, okay, I'm going to mime. I know what I'm doing. So I mimed as Sue did all the singing. She was great. She made a huge, wonderful noise. So I don't really sing, but my mum said, oh, you could give it a go. It's, nothing's going to happen with it. So Steve had got this producer called Mark Wirtz, who had a big hit with Grocer Jack. You're all too young to know Grocer Jack, I think, but it was a huge hit in the 60s, and he was going to be the producer on the record. So I met him, I think at Steve's flat, and he said, could you sing a little song? So all I could sing, I thought, and it was just like that. I didn't know it was a character. I sang My Guy, Mary Wells, My Guy, and I only did a little chorus. He said, right, that's enough. I thought, oh gosh, okay. Anyway, the next thing I knew, he'd got this record, this Tar and Cement, and he'd already put the backing track on, so he had this wonderful backing track. I was only to learn who was on the backing track later, because they weren't, I can't say they were there when I did it, so they weren't there, but they got the backing track. And then I did this little song, Tar and Cement. But on the backside, if you ever get a chance to listen to it, you'll really hear Eric Clapton, because it's called This Sporting Life. Now, I was a 16-year-old girl who used to sing in the church choir. I'd been to a convent taught by nuns who were very strict. And there I was, singing This Sporting Life, which was, I'm not going to sing it, believe me, I'm not especially. It went something like, I'm getting tired of running round. I believe I'll get married and I'll settle down, because this old nightlife, this old sporting life, it's killing me. And those were the words. And this little choir voice is trying to sing these. Sounds very funny. And it went on to actually get quite a lot of airplay. And Steve said, anybody heard of David Frost here?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, David Frost. David Frost had a show every Saturday night. It was the big show, and the record was starting to get played. And David Frost approached Steve and said, "Would she come on and sing the song?" I hadn't been on television or anything. So he said, "Would she do it?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it. It's hard enough in the studio's doing it. I don't want to do it." So anyway, I didn't do it, and Françoise Hardy, the wonderful French singer, actress, went on to have a nice big hit with it. So yeah, so that was my foray into that.
that was your music career.
I did a bit with Gary Newman. You know Gary Newman over here? Yeah, Gary Newman. Cars, yes, Electric, yes. That was a great song. He was lovely, actually, to meet and clever.
Do a quick aside. He played Pensacola last year, the Vinyl Music Hall.
Did he?
Yes.
Did you go and see him?
I did not.
Did anybody see him? You went to see him. How was he? He's phenomenal. And don't his daughters do something now with him? And Sam. Yeah, they're all very talented. And his wife is lovely, Gemma. So I had a little warble with him. Again, he put the track down before I came along. It was again through a newspaper man said, Gary Newman would like you to try and sing. I said, well, I really don't sing. He said, well, he's got something special for you to do. So I went to the studio, Newmar Studios, which was in Shepperton Studios, the film studios, and Gary had his own studios there. So I went in and he put the soundtrack down with his voice in the background, nice voice in the background. And he said, could you have a try? So I tried. It was actually in the wrong key. It was very high. But I did my best, I did it. I worked for a couple of hours doing it. And so that was Pump Me Up, it was called. Strange title. Apparently it was a hit in Italy. Went on to be quite a dance hit, apparently. It's a very strange song, if anybody's heard it. It's quite good, and you can hear Gary, you can hear his voice, and it's clever, electronic.
We'll talk about 80s music. Adam Ant had a big hit in the U.S.
Yes.
Goody Two Shoes.
He did.
And was there a music video to that song?
There was a music video. And again, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but that was such fun to do. He got in touch with my agent and said, would she be, willing to come along and have a go at this song, Goody Two Shoes. And we had such a wonderful time. It was a director called Mike Mansfield who shot a lot of music videos at that time. That was in the 80s, I think, early 80s as far as I remember. And so we went down to this. It was actually, they do a lot of things there. I think he'd done Prince Charming there, I'm not sure. But it was in an old, very old, beautiful building that there had one time been how do you say it nicely? A place for people who have problems. So it was an asylum basically, and the building was absolutely beautiful, very Victorian, very Gothic and wonderful. So this is where Gary liked to do all his stuff. So went down and he showed us all the storyboards. Wonderful artist. Adam, wonderful artist, and showed me what was to be, what he wanted. And we did it, we shot it in 2 days, and I think it was rather good. I think he did a great job, and we had such fun, especially the end bit. So he said, do you want to jump up and down and do things? I said, yeah, if you want me to, I will. So we did, so we jumped up and down, put the hair up, put the hair down, and that's how it came to be. Had such fun, and he was a delightful man. Really.
They played a lot on MTV here then.
Apparently they did, yes, apparently they did. Yeah, it was a hit in England too. Have you got a question?
Yes, ma'am. I remember the Adam Ant video on MTV. We used to watch it all the time.
Did you?
Yes.
Thanks.
Now you mentioned you work with Tom Baker and Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. Both of them went on to Star Wars. Tom Baker, the longest Doctor Who, and with Roger Moore, the longest James Bond.
He did the most, didn't he?
You also worked with Christopher Plummer.
I did.
And David Hasselhoff in Star Crash.
I did.
So give us some memories about Star Crash.
Star Crash, again, I did. It was an interesting project. It was Luigi Cozzi, who loved Ray Harryhausen, actually. He liked Ray Harryhausen's films very much, and Ray was his inspiration for film. And he got in touch again with my agent, and he said, would she be interested to maybe have a part in... I actually was in New York. I remember the call came through. I was in New York shooting an oxymoron for, what's it called? Great Balls of Comfort. Nobody's ever seen it, I'm sure. Anyway, I had to sing and dance in that. It's called Great Balls of Comfort and Anti-Friction. Apparently they played these before baseball matches, these these videos. Had great fun doing that. Anyway, the call came when I was in New York from Luigi. He said, would you be interested? He said, I like your work, and would you be interested in maybe shooting a film in Italy? I thought, Italy? That sounds nice. He said, yes, it's a character. He said, Caroline, it's a character called Stella Star. He said, I think you would be right, and the costume and everything would be good for you. I thought, okay, that sounds terrific. Spoke to the agent sorted it out, and I found about 3 weeks later myself on the way to Rome, and the adventure began, and it was an adventure. It was an extraordinary experience. We got to work at Cinecittà, which was the film studios in the 60s really. Sophia Loren and Gina Lollobrigida and all these extraordinary stars, female and male stars, had worked there. And there I was. Big old studios. They'd shot a lot of the westerns there, you know, they had a huge backlot. So it was fabulous studios, getting a bit older, but massive sound stages. So Cinecittà was turned into different various spaceships and things. So we shot a lot of stuff inside, but we also travelled a lot outside within Italy. Luigi was extraordinary to work with, and I remember the first day he introduced me to the costume designer, who was a man, a very flamboyant man, shall I say. And he came and said, oh, he said, Caroline, he said, you're nice. I said, thank you very much. He said, let me show you a costume. So I went in, I went into the costume, thinking I'm going to wear a spacesuit, you know, and stuff, you know, proper space pilot, yeah, proper stuff. Went in there, and he produced this little strip of leather. I said, oh, that's nice. What do I do? Do I put it around my wrist or my legs or something? He said, no, Caroline, you put on there, chest. I said, okay. And then what? Then what? You know, then the costume as well. He said, that is the costume, Caroline, that's the costume. Louis, do you want that costume? And, oh my gosh, I'm going to struggle with this one. So it was 2 little strips, and Stella Star was born, really, with a lot of toupee tape. Do people know what that is? It's basically sticky stuff that sticks everywhere. So with the help of a lot of toupee tape, Stella Star came to life, I suppose, really. I liked her. She was quite feisty. I did my first week in a place right down, if anybody knows the shape of Italy, it has a boot, which I'm very partial to myself. But at the end of the boot was a place called Camacchio, and it was a swamp, basically. And for the first week, I was there with the crew, Luigi and the crew, and he just wanted me to run up and down on the swamps. I said, Luigi, what am I doing? He said, you're running up and down. He said, you're escaping the prison. I said, okay. So I forgot I was meant to be in prison. So yes, okay, that made sense. So he said, you're running away from the prison and you fall in the swamp. I thought, okay, wearing this, fall in the swamp. And of course I have my gun, massive great gun with me, lovely silver gun. And yeah, we rehearsed, I ran for a week. I got so fit. That was the plus. I got so fit and so grubby. I remember wearing this costume. And they also, at one point, which they didn't use in the film, they dug a great big hole in this marshy, swampy thing. And he said, right, Caroline, today you fall in the quicksand. I said, what, Luigi? He said, yeah, you do. We decide you fall in the quicksand. But I thought it was running away. He said, yes, you run away, you fall in the quicksand. I love Luigi. I do love Luigi. So I said, all right, Luigi. I mean, what do I do? Do I just rehearse it? No, he said, you just go. We shoot over there. You just go, run along, fall in the quicksand. So okay. Right, I was a bit nervous at this point, wearing a costume, had my gun, running along, long boots, thigh boots, running along, kind of holding my breath, thinking, what's going to happen? How big's the hole? Am I going to sink or what? Anyway, went in the quicksand, covered in quicksand, got the gun stuck in the quicksand, and Luigi said, Caroline, pull gun. I said, can't pull gun, Luigi, stuck in quicksand, can't get boots filling with quicksand. Wasn't quicksand, but it felt like quicksand. I don't know what quicksand feels like, but it was mighty mucky. And anyway, stuntman came along, Fred. He said, Caroline, I said, right. He said, I'll get you out. So they hauled me out. Luigi said, right. He said, not a good idea, is it? No, we just keep running. So we kept running, and so they cut that scene. And we did many other things there too. We ended up, doing so much different stuff that actually wasn't in the film. It was, Luigi was very, I like to do impromptu things.
I could talk to you forever, but
Have we got to go?
I think we're done.
Oh no!
50 minutes went very quickly.
50?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only just started. I tell you what.
Anyone, a quick lightning round? Anyone else?
Anybody got any questions for anything?
Do you have any stories for Dr. Fives?
Dr. Fives? Well, I love Dr. Fives and I adored working with Vincent Price. Just a quickie, because I know I spent time. Everybody wants to go home now, don't they? Really, it's kind of finished. Yes, just a quickie. I had a contract with Hammer Films. They didn't. Robert Faust asked me if I would do the film, be the wife, and I knew I had no dialogue in that. That was great, no dialogue. Hammer Films I had a contract, didn't want me to do it. They said no. I said I don't think so. You shouldn't really be doing other films. You were contracted to us at this point. And I said, but I'd love to work with Vincent Price. They said the only way we'll let you out if you have no credit. I said I don't mind. I don't need a credit. And I don't think, as far as I remember, I got paid. But I was allowed to do 2 weeks working with this wonderful man. Again, no dialogue, but lying in the coffin with him, what a joy. I mean, no, really, what a joy. Because in the morning, he'd come in to the makeup, to the girls in the makeup room, and I had to be made very white and dead. Obviously, I was dead. Victoria Fives was dead. What he did, he'd bring in pate, freshly mixed. He was a fabulous cook, I'm sure a lot of you know. Bring in pate in the morning, toast, and he'd say, come on girls, make your toast, make your breakfast. And this was 6:30 in the morning. So we'd have the pate and the toast, and then it was time to lie in the coffin. So I lay down, my tummy was very full, and they put me in this wonderful, beautiful, like a negligee thing, but covered in feathers. And I'm rather allergic to feathers, so that was quite a tough scene to do. But I remember lying there next to Vincent, which was very, very sweet. He was the nicest, gentlest man to work with. A joy, again, to listen and watch. Yeah, I tried very hard not to burp in the coffin. Sorry, on that note, that's from the crew, isn't it? Sorry about that. Listen, you've been so lovely, and have a continued lovely time at the show, but I think it's pretty much closed now, isn't it? You all coming back next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah. Thank you so much. You've been delightful. You really have, and thank you very much. Thank you too.
Thank you. And talk about delightful. Let's say once again, thank you to Caroline.
Thank you. Love you all.